Let me ask you something that I want you to answer not with your intellect, but with the honest feeling that lives beneath it. When you imagine the fullest possible expression of your life, the version of your work, your contribution, your reach, your impact that corresponds to everything you sense you are capable of, how do you carry yourself inside that image? What is the quality of movement, the quality of thought, the quality of inner relationship with yourself that belongs to the person living that life? Now let me ask you a second question. How do you carry yourself today? If there is a gap between those two answers, and for most people, there is a substantial one, I want to spend the next 30 minutes showing you precisely what that gap is made of, and precisely how to close it. Not gradually, not through years of incremental effort, through the one act that has always been the only act that actually creates the deliberate assumption of the state you have been waiting for permission to inhabit. Tonight's subject is the empire. Not the empire as a metaphor for vague ambition, but as the specific, concrete, fully imagined expression of your largest vision for your life and your work and your contribution. The empire you have glimpsed in your most honest moments, and perhaps dismissed in the next breath as too large, too presumptuous, too far from where you currently stand. I want to tell you something about that empire. It already exists. Not in the future, waiting for you to earn your way toward it. In consciousness, in the realm of imagination, which is the only realm where creation actually takes place. It is already real, already fully formed, already waiting for you to occupy it. Your task is not to build it from nothing. Your task is to inhabit it now. In the only place you can inhabit anything, in consciousness, in assumption, in the felt, settled, genuine certainty of one who has already arrived. That is what act as if you are building an empire means. And tonight I am going to show you how. Every empire that has ever existed in the physical world existed first, and completely, in someone's imagination. This is not a poetic observation. It is the precise mechanics of how the outer world comes into being. Before a single stone was laid of Rome, there was a vision of Rome held by men who could see, in their inner world, a city and a civilization that did not yet exist in the outer. Before the first printing press was built, Gutenberg's imagination had already produced it, turned it over, examined it, felt the reality of it, long before his hands had touched the materials. Before every company that changed an industry, before every institution that shaped a culture, before every achievement that seemed impossible until it was done, there was a person who had already, in the privacy of their own consciousness, inhabited the completed version of the thing. This is not inspiration or motivation. This is the law of creation, operating consistently and without exception. The inner precedes the outer, always. The imagined precedes the manifested, always. The consciousness of the builder precedes the building. Always, the outer world is not the origin of your circumstances. It is the record of your prior states of consciousness. It is what has already been established in imagination, taken material form. What this means practically is this. The most important work of empire building does not take place in the negotiating room, the boardroom, the workshop, or the field. It takes place in the inner chamber of your imagination, in the specific quality of consciousness you occupy when you close your eyes at night and enter the state that precedes sleep. That is where the empire is built or not built. That is where its foundations are laid or neglected. Everything that subsequently appears in the outer world is the harvest of what was or was not established there. This is why I want to speak tonight not about strategy or tactics or the outer mechanics of building something large. These have their place, and I will address them. But they are effects, not causes. The cause is always the inner state, always the felt, inhabitable, genuinely occupied consciousness of the person who has already arrived. Get the inner state right, and the outer mechanics arrange themselves. Neglect the inner state and attend only to the outer mechanics. And you will work very hard for results that frustrate you by failing to compound the way you expected. Build the empire in consciousness first. Build it completely. Build it with the full weight of your imagination and your feeling. And then, and this is the key live from inside it, in the ordinary hours of your ordinary days, as the person it already belongs to. Let me now describe something very specific. The quality of consciousness that belongs to the person who is genuinely living as an empire builder, not performing it, not claiming the title without the inner substance, but actually inhabiting the state from which large things are created. The first quality is unquestioned self-authority, not arrogance. Arrogance is the performance of confidence by someone who does not have it. Self-authority is quieter and far more powerful. It is the simple, non-defensive, matter-of-fact relationship with yourself of someone who does not require the outer world's validation to know what they know and do what they do. The empire builder does not walk into a room seeking permission from the room. They bring their own atmosphere. Their certainty is not dependent on how others respond to them. It is prior to response, independent of response, unaffected by contradiction or doubt from outside. This is not a quality you develop after you have proven yourself to the world. It is a quality you assume now in consciousness, in the inner chamber, before a single outer thing has changed. You choose it. You inhabit it. You feel what it feels like to carry yourself with the quiet, grounded, completely unstrained authority of one who knows who they are and what they are building. And then you bring that feeling into the next conversation, the next decision, the next moment where the old habit of seeking permission might otherwise reassert itself. The second quality is vision habitation. By this I mean the specific practice of living mentally and emotionally inside the completed vision rather than outside it looking in. Most people relate to their vision as something in the distance, something they can see from where they stand. But that is still out there, still ahead, still requiring the passage of time and the accumulation of proof before it can be genuinely felt as real. This relationship with vision is the precise relationship that keeps vision at a distance. Because the law responds to where you are standing in consciousness, not to what you can see from there. If you are always standing outside the vision looking at it, the law perpetuates the experience of standing outside. Step inside. In your imagination, in the nightly practice, I will describe in more detail shortly. Step fully inside the completed version of what you are building. Be there. Not watching yourself there, being there. Feel the specific quality of atmosphere that belongs to that place. The particular feeling in your body of someone who has done this thing. The specific texture of what it is to be that person operating from that level. Carrying that kind of weight and that kind of freedom simultaneously. The third quality is what I will call the naturalness of scale. One of the most common and most limiting habits of consciousness among people with large visions is the residual feeling that the vision is somehow too large, that they are somehow too ordinary to inhabit it. That there is a version of themselves that would qualify to live at that level, but that version is not yet quite who they are. This feeling, the feeling that the empire belongs to a more deserving, more accomplished, more proven future self is the single most effective mechanism for keeping the empire in the future. The empire builder's consciousness does not contain this feeling, not because they are supremely confident in the ordinary egotistical sense, but because they have genuinely stopped relating to their vision as something that requires their worthiness to be established first. They relate to it the way you relate to something that is simply yours, not with awe, not with gratitude for being permitted to have it, but with the casual, taken for granted naturalness of ownership the naturalness of someone for whom this is simply life. Cultivate this naturalness. Let the vision stop being extraordinary and start being ordinary. Let it be your Tuesday. Let it be the unremarkable background of your daily existence in imagination. And watch how the outer world begins, quietly and then with increasing momentum, to reorganize around the frequency you are broadcasting. I want to give you now the specific practice, the most important single practice I can offer for establishing the empire in consciousness with the depth and consistency that the law requires. It takes place at the threshold of sleep. I have spoken many times about the creative power of the moment. Just before sleep, the interval when the conscious, analytical, doubt-generating mind begins to release its grip, and the subconscious, which is the medium through which imagination becomes outer reality, becomes maximally receptive to impression. This is the moment I am asking you to use deliberately every night, for the explicit purpose of establishing and reinforcing the state of the empire builder. Here is the practice. As you approach sleep, construct a scene, not a grand, panoramic vision of your empire in its full scope. This is too large to inhabit with the sensory specificity that makes it land in the subconscious as experience rather than observation. A small scene, a single, concrete, fully sensory moment from inside the life of the person who has already built what you are building. The specific moment you choose matters less than the quality of inhabitation you bring to it. Choose something that carries the particular feeling, the specific atmospheric quality of consciousness that belongs to your empire at its fullest. Perhaps it is the feeling of a particular kind of conversation between equals about something you have built. Perhaps it is the sensation of holding something in your hands that represents the completed work. Perhaps it is simply the quality of a morning, the specific way the light falls, the specific ease in your body, the specific absence of a particular anxiety that belongs to the life of the person who has arrived. Make it sensory, not visual only, all five senses, in whatever proportion feels natural. The weight of something, the quality of sound in the space, the particular ease in the muscles of one who is not carrying the tension of struggle, the specific warmth of recognition in another person's voice. And then, and this is the essential instruction, be there, not observing it from outside, not watching yourself in it, being the person it is happening to from the inside, in the first person, in the present tense. Feel it as your actual present experience, not as an imagined future event. Hold this for as long as it naturally sustains itself without effort for most people. This is between 1 and 5 minutes, and then let it dissolve naturally into sleep. Do not strain to maintain it beyond the point of ease. The impression has been made. The subconscious has received. Your only task now is to allow sleep to take the impression deeper than your conscious mind can reach, and to trust the creative intelligence that operates through the night to begin the work of aligning your outer world with what has been established within. Do this every night. Not occasionally, not when you remember to, but as the consistent, reliable, daily practice of one who takes the inner work as seriously as the outer. For it is. More so, in fact. Let me address now the question of action, because the principle I am teaching is sometimes misunderstood to mean that imagination is a substitute for action. And I want to correct this clearly. Imagination is not a substitute for action. It is the source from which the right action arises naturally, effortlessly, and with a precision that no amount of strategic planning from the outside in can match. Here is the distinction I want you to carry. There are two fundamentally different modes of acting in the world. The first is acting toward your vision, acting from the state of one who is still outside the vision, working to get in, driven by the gap between where you are and where you want to be. This action is characterized by a particular quality of effortfulness, a quality of pushing, of working against resistance, of needing to motivate yourself, because the movement does not arise naturally. It is not worthless, it produces results, but it is not the most efficient or most powerful mode of creative engagement. The second mode is acting from your vision, acting from the state of one who is already inside the completed version of what they are building, who is already the empire builder, and whose actions are simply the natural expression of that identity. This action has an entirely different quality. It does not require motivation because it arises from identity rather than aspiration. It does not feel like pushing against resistance because you are not located outside the vision, working to get in. You are located inside it, and your actions are simply what that person does. This is the shift I am asking you to make. Not the suspension of action, but the reorientation of the ground from which action arises. Stop acting in order to become the empire builder. Begin acting because you already are. What does this look like practically? It looks like approaching the entry-level position with the standards and the attention to excellence of the CO, not because you are performing above your pay grade, but because your inner identity does not contain the limitation of the entry-level position. It looks like speaking about your work with the quiet confidence of someone whose success is already established, rather than the anxious persuasiveness of someone who needs to convince others it is possible. It looks like treating each person you encounter as a potential collaborator in something already real, rather than as a gatekeeper who must be won over. This shift in the ground of action produces outcomes that the first mode cannot. Opportunities that were invisible become visible. People who were indifferent become interested. Resources that were unavailable become available, not through manipulation or luck, but through the simple, reliable operation of the law that, like consciousness, attracts like experience. Act from the empire, every day, in the smallest moments and the largest ones, and watch the outer world rearrange itself around the inner reality you are broadcasting. I must speak now about the challenges, because if I do not, you will encounter them unprepared and perhaps mistake them for evidence that the principle does not work. Every great vision is tested, not occasionally, not in some lives, but not others, in every life, without exception. The testing is not punishment, not a sign that you have done something wrong, not evidence that the vision is too large or that you are not the right person to carry it. The testing is, in fact, the precise mechanism through which the empire builder's consciousness is forged into the quality of solidity it needs to support what it is building. Consider this. A foundation that has never borne weight cannot be trusted to bear weight. A muscle that has never encountered resistance has not developed the strength the work requires. The challenges you face in the building of your empire are not obstacles to the process. They are the process. They are the specific experiences through which the consciousness that can sustain the empire is developed, through which the quiet, undefendable self-authority I described earlier becomes genuinely organic rather than deliberately assumed. When the challenge comes, when the circumstance arises that seems to contradict your vision, that presents evidence for the impossibility of what you are building, that activates every old doubt and every inherited limitation, the practice is this: return to the empire, not with forced positivity, not with the strained cheerfulness of someone trying to override a reality they are not sure they can face, with the specific, deliberate, practiced act of stepping back inside the completed vision and feeling from there what the person who has already built this would feel in the face of this particular challenge. From inside the completed empire, the challenge looks different. It looks like what it is: a manageable moment in the unfolding of something large, a problem to be solved by the kind of person who solves such problems, an obstacle that the empire has already absorbed and transcended because in consciousness, the empire is already complete. Respond from that place, not from the place of the person still outside the vision, frightened that this particular challenge might finally be the proof that it is not possible. From the place of the person already inside, for whom this is simply the next problem in the life of someone who builds empires. This is persistence in its deepest and most functional form, not the grim endurance of one who keeps going despite doubt, the grounded continuation of one who has so thoroughly inhabited the consciousness of the completed vision that doubt simply does not have the purchase it once had. Let me leave you with the thing that is most important for you to carry from tonight. The empire is not waiting for you to earn your way toward it. It is not a reward for sufficient effort or sufficient proof of worthiness. It is not something that will become available to you when the outer world finally provides the right conditions. It is not, in the deepest sense, something you will build at all, because in consciousness, it is already built. It already exists. It is already fully formed in the imagination, which is the only medium where creation actually takes place. What you are being asked to do is not the long, effortful, uphill work of constructing something from nothing. You are being asked to do the far simpler, for reasons I understand, far more frightening thing of claiming what is already yours. Claiming it in consciousness, inhabiting it in imagination, living from it in the ordinary, unremarkable, taken for granted way that you inhabit everything else you genuinely possess, without ceremony, without drama, without waiting for the outer world's permission or confirmation. Tonight, before you sleep, step inside your empire, not as a visitor, as its author, its occupant, the consciousness from which it arises. Feel what that person feels. Let your body carry what their body carries, the particular ease, the particular grounded authority, the particular quality of movement through the world of one who is not seeking anything, because they are already standing in the fullest expression of what they are. Feel it completely. Let it be as real as the room around you, more real, in the sense that matters, because it is the inner world that creates the outer. And the inner world is where you have always had the most direct access to what is true. And in the morning, carry it with you, not as performance, as identity, as the simple, unargued, completely natural expression of who you have decided to be in the only moment that decision can ever be made. Now, the empire is not ahead of you. It is within you, waiting for you to recognize it as yours and live accordingly. Go now. Claim the throne that was always yours. The world has been waiting for what you are going to build. This is never lectures. I'll see you again in the next video. When the day draws to its gentle close and the outer senses begin to dim, you are not approaching unconsciousness. You are approaching the threshold of creation. Night is not an absence of activity. It is the womb of God. And since imagination is God, and imagination is your very being, then the moment before sleep is the holiest hour of your day. You have been taught to believe that the world shapes you. You have been persuaded that events impress themselves upon you and that you must struggle to alter conditions. But I tell you with the certainty of direct knowing, consciousness is the only reality. The world does not act upon you. It reflects you. It does not decide your fate. It echoes your assumption. Creation is finished. There is nothing to be created. There are only states to be occupied. Infinite states already exist, just as infinite rooms exist within a vast mansion. You do not build the room. You enter it. You do not manufacture destiny. You assume it. And so the great secret is this. You must release the old state to enter the new. You cannot serve two states at once. You cannot be the one who longs and the one who has. You cannot be the one who doubts and the one who knows. As Scripture declares, no man can serve two masters. Psychologically understood, You cannot occupy two assumptions simultaneously. The man you have been is nothing but a state you have worn. It is not your identity, it is not your essence, it is a garment, and garments are meant to be changed. Before sleep, you are invited to remove the garment of the old man. Remove the identity that says, I am not yet, I am trying, I hope, I fear. These are but states. They have no life of their own. They borrow life from your attention. Withdraw attention, and they dissolve like mist before the morning sun. Sleep is not a passive descent into darkness. It is a surrender into creative authority. As you fall asleep, the conscious mind relaxes its grip, and the deeper self receives impression without resistance. What you feel to be true in that borderland between wakefulness and sleep is impressed upon the deeper strata of being, and what is impressed must be expressed. Feeling is the secret, not forced emotion, not excitement, not effort. Feeling as knowing, feeling as naturalness, feeling as inevitability. Do it like this before sleep. Lie upon your bed and allow the body to grow still. Let the limbs become heavy, not through strain, but through permission. Close your eyes, not to escape the world, but to withdraw from its tyranny. The outer senses will begin to fade. Do not resist this. Welcome it. You are turning from shadow to substance. Now, bring before your mind's eye a single scene which would be true if your desire were already fulfilled. Not the process, not the becoming, the fulfillment itself. Make it short, make it vivid, make it natural. If you desire health, see yourself being congratulated on your radiant vitality. If you desire abundance, hear a trusted friend remark upon your financial freedom. If you desire love, feel the presence of the beloved beside you, not as longing but as possession. Do not watch it as a spectator. Enter it, stand within it, feel its tones, its textures, its atmosphere. Allow the scene to imply that it is done. The key is implication. The scene must carry the feeling of completion. Then let go of all concern for how it will come to pass. The how belongs to the outer arrangement of states. Your only responsibility is occupation. Occupy the state as you would occupy a room. Close the door behind you. As you repeat the scene gently, without strain, allow the feeling of naturalness to arise. It should not feel dramatic. It should feel obvious. It should feel like memory rather than fantasy. For imagination, when rightly used, is memory of what eternally exists. You are not creating something new. You are selecting what already is. Creation is finished. If thoughts of the former state arise, do not wrestle with them. Simply refuse to feed them. They are echoes of a room you have left. Why argue with an empty chamber? Return to your chosen state. You must let go of the old man. Let him die. Not through violence, but through neglect. The old self survives only through repetition. Stop repeating him. Stop telling his story. Stop rehearsing his limitations. Instead, rehearse the end. Rehearse the fulfilled desire. Fall asleep in the assumption that it is done. As you drift towards sleep, let the scene become more and more effortless. Eventually, the words will fade. The images may soften. What remains is the feeling. Guard that feeling. Carry it across the threshold into sleep. Sleep, sustained in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, is the great creative act. For what you assume to be true, though denied by the senses, hardens into fact. The world must conform. It has no choice. It is not independent. It is not autonomous. It is yourself pushed out. When you awaken in the morning, do not look to the outer world for confirmation. That is the habit of the old state. Instead, rise as the one who already is. Carry yourself with the quiet conviction of fulfillment. You are not pretending, you are being. There is no need to force action. Appropriate action will flow from the state you occupy. The state contains its own patterns of behavior, its own opportunities, its own rearrangements of circumstance. You do not strain to make it happen. You remain faithful to the assumption. Faith is not belief in an external deity. Faith is loyalty to your unseen assumption. It is persistence in being the one you have chosen to be, even when the senses whisper otherwise. The senses are not enemies. They are delayed mirrors. What they show you is past assumption made visible. If you dislike what you see, do not attempt to smash the mirror. Change the face you present to it. Change of state is the only change. You cannot serve two states at once. You cannot lie in bed feeling wealthy and rise feeling deprived. You cannot assume love at night and rehearse rejection by day. Choose the state. Live in it inwardly. Let the outer world take care of itself. You are already the one you seek to be. The seeking is the veil. Drop it. Enter the state. Feel it real. Persist. There is a silence within you deeper than thought. In that silence, all states exist. When you enter imagination with authority, you are not daydreaming. You are selecting from eternity. This is why the moment before sleep is sacred. It is the doorway through which you impress the deeper self, and the deeper self is faithful. It accepts what you give it without judgment. Give it fear, and it multiplies fear. Give it fulfillment, and it arranges fulfillment. You are the operant power, not your effort, not your rituals, not your affirmations spoken mechanically, your identity. Who are you being as you fall asleep? That is the question which determines your tomorrow. Let the old state fall away. Do not carry it into sleep. Do not rehearse grievances. Do not relive failures. These are seeds, and seeds, once planted in the soil of sleep, will sprout as experience. Instead, plant fulfillment. Plant gratitude as fact, not as hope. Feel the relief of completion. Feel the calm of having arrived. It will not feel like fireworks. It will feel like inevitability. And in that inevitability, you will know the truth that sets you free. Consciousness precedes experience. The inner assumption becomes the outer event. You are not at the mercy of time. You are not waiting for circumstances. You are selecting states. The state selected, when sustained, must objectify. So do it like this before sleep. Withdraw from the outer noise. Enter imagination deliberately. Construct a simple scene that implies fulfillment. Feel it natural. Let it become memory. Fall asleep in it. And then release all anxiety. For the seed is planted. The law is impersonal and exact. Assumption, persisted in, hardens into fact. There is no exception. The only question is which assumption you are nurturing. Let the former state die. Bless it and release it. It served its purpose. It revealed what you no longer choose. Now choose again. Night after night, enter the new state. Wear it. Walk in it inwardly. Speak from it mentally. Think from it, not of it. In time, you will discover that the outer world has rearranged itself quietly, almost unnoticed, to mirror your inner conviction. You will call it coincidence. Others will call it luck. But you will know that you did not change the world. You changed your state. And the world, being yourself pushed out, had no choice but to follow. This is the law. This is the promise. This is the revelation remembered. Do it like this before sleep. And let consciousness reveal its glory through you. For you must understand this more deeply. There is no power outside of awareness. There is no force in the heavens, no decree in the stars, no hidden authority determining your path. The only authority is the one who says, I am. And that awareness of being, that simple sense of existence within you now, is God. When Moses stood before the burning bush and asked for a name, the answer was not a title, not a doctrine, not a religion. The answer was, I am. This was not spoken of another. It was the revelation of being itself. And that same I am speaks within you now as your own consciousness. Whatever you attach to I am becomes your state. Say silently, I am tired, and you assume the state of fatigue. Say, I am forgotten, and you enter the state of neglect. Say, I am secure, and you move into the state of safety. The words themselves are not magic. It is the assumption behind them. It is the identity accepted. Therefore, before sleep, be vigilant about the identity you claim. Do not carelessly drift into unconscious repetition of the old man. Do not allow the day's appearances to dictate your being. The outer world is always the echo of prior assumptions. It has no authority to define you unless you accept its definition. You are not attempting to change circumstances. You are shifting identity. This is subtler than effort. It is quieter than struggle. It is the simple decision to no longer occupy a former state. Consider how easily you move through rooms in your home. You do not argue with the kitchen when you desire the bedroom. You do not persuade the hallway to transform. You simply walk into another room. So it is with states. They coexist, they are present now. The state of poverty and the state of wealth are both available. The state of illness and the state of vitality are both complete. You do not create either. You enter one. And entry is by assumption. To assume is not to hope. It is not to wish. It is not to strain. To assume is to accept as true. When you assume something, you stop questioning it. You stop looking for proof. You proceed as though it were fact. This quiet acceptance is the creative act. If, before sleep, you can accept the fulfilled desire as fact, not emotionally inflated, not theatrically exaggerated, but calmly accepted, then you have performed the work. There is nothing more to do. You may ask, what if I do not yet feel it natural? Then persist gently. Repeat the scene, not with desperation, but with familiarity. Allow it to become comfortable. The first night it may feel new. The second night it will feel familiar. The third night it will begin to feel obvious. And once it feels obvious, it is yours. Naturalness is the sign of successful assumption. The world is not waiting to judge your worthiness. It is waiting to reflect your conviction. It mirrors without discrimination. It mirrors saint and sinner alike. It mirrors doubt as faithfully as it mirrors faith. It has no opinion. It is law. And law does not respond to emotion alone. It responds to sustained identity. You may become excited for a moment and imagine success, but if you return to the old identity of lack, the old state remains dominant. It is not the intensity of feeling that matters. It is the continuity of being. Therefore, do not attempt to generate dramatic emotion before sleep. Instead, cultivate certainty. Certainty is quiet. Certainty does not shout. Certainty rests. When you lie upon your bed tonight, allow yourself to feel the relief that comes with finality. The matter is settled. The desire is fulfilled. There is nothing to chase, nothing to fix, nothing to earn. This relief is not laziness, it is completion. The old man thrives on effort. He believes that by doing more, striving harder, worrying longer, he will compel reality to change. But reality does not respond to force. It responds to assumption. Let the old man go to sleep without you. Leave him behind. Do not carry his fears across the threshold of slumber. You are not obligated to maintain him. Scripture speaks of being born again. This is not a future event. It is a psychological shift. It is the abandonment of one state and the entrance into another. Each night you are given the opportunity to be born anew. The moment between wakefulness and sleep is the Jordan River. Cross it consciously. As you drift, you may notice thoughts attempting to intrude reminders of bills, conversations, unfinished tasks. These are fragments of the former state seeking continuity. Do not wrestle with them. Simply return to your chosen scene. Persist, gently but firmly. Imagination is not fantasy. It is the divine medium of creation. Every visible object was first imagined. Every structure, every invention, every relationship began as a mental image accepted as possible. What is true on the collective scale is true individually. The unseen precedes the seen. You are not separate from this law. You are its embodiment. When you understand that consciousness is the only reality, fear begins to dissolve. For if consciousness is the source of all experience, then there is no external power to threaten you. There is only misidentification, the temporary occupation of a state you no longer choose. If you find yourself experiencing what you dislike, do not condemn yourself. Simply recognize, I have been occupying a state unconsciously, and then choose again. There is no punishment in this law. There is only reflection. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, choose deliberately. Decide who you are, not who you have been told you are, not who circumstances suggest you are, who you are in consciousness. Claim it inwardly. Feel the solidity of it. Let the body grow heavy while the assumption grows strong. Do not rush to sleep. Allow sleep to overtake you while you remain faithful to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If you awaken during the night, return to it. If you wake in the morning, resume it. This is not a technique to be used once and abandoned. It is a way of being. It is the disciplined use of imagination aligned with identity. You may not see immediate outer change, and that is of no concern. The outer world is the last to know. The seed germinates beneath the soil before any sprout appears. Do not dig it up with doubt. Leave it planted. Time is simply the unfolding of assumption into visibility. What you are conscious of being now determines what time will reveal. Therefore, remain inwardly loyal. There will come a moment, perhaps subtle, perhaps dramatic, when the outer world rearranges itself so precisely that you recognize the echo of your former imaginal act. And in that moment, you will understand, not intellectually, but experientially, that imagination creates reality. You will see that you did not force anything. You did not manipulate anyone. You did not coerce circumstances. You simply changed states. And the state expressed itself. This is the simplicity that confounds the logical mind. The mind seeks complexity, systems, rituals. But the law is simple. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persist. Persist not in effort, but in identity. The world will attempt to seduce you back into the old state. Appearances may contradict your assumption, but appearances are shadows cast by prior belief. They are not prophecy. They are history. Do not live in history. Live in fulfillment. Before sleep tonight, let this be your silent declaration. It is done, not as words repeated mechanically, but as a recognition. The matter is settled in consciousness. And because consciousness is the only reality, the outer must follow. Rest in that certainty. Allow sleep to seal it. And know with a calm that requires no proof that what you have assumed to be true is already moving into visibility, for it exists now as a state, and you have entered it. This is the way. Do it like this before sleep, and remain faithful to the being you have chosen, until the mirror of the world reveals the face you have accepted as your own.